What is traditional perennialism? Traditional perennialism, also known as the Perennial Philosophy, is a perspective that speaks to the heart of universal wisdom that is shared across all major religions and spiritual traditions. It is a set of profound truths that have shaped humanity's understanding of existence. Traditional perennialism also emphasizes that beneath the surface of diverse religious practices and beliefs lies a common thread of universal truth. This philosophy encompasses that there is a timeless wisdom inherent in all spiritual traditions. The term perennial philosophy originates from the Latin phrase Philosophia perennis, meaning eternal philosophy. It was first popularized by the German philosopher and theologian Agostino Stucco in the 16th century. But the concept it describes is much older. In fact, it would be very difficult to give a time to something that is inherently timeless. And so many different cultures have had their own terms for this universal wisdom. For example, in Hinduism, it's known as Sanatan Dharma, which means eternal order or eternal duty. And in Islam, it's referred to as hikmah, meaning wisdom. These terms all point to that same timeless truth that transcends individual traditions, or at least that is what the perennialists believe in. Let's start with ancient Greece, where the roots of Western philosophical thought began to take shape. Greek philosophers like Plato spoke of eternal truths through his theory of forms. According to Plato, beyond our physical world lies a realm of perfect, immutable ideas. In his dialogue, The Republic, Plato describes the allegory of the cave, illustrating how the perceived reality is just a shadow of the true reality. He writes, "In the world of knowledge, the idea of good appears last of all, and is seen only with an effort, and, when seen, is also inferred to be the universal author of all things beautiful and right." This idea emphasized a higher reality that underpins our material existence. There is more than meets the eye, and this physical realm isn't all there is. Moving forward, we encounter Neoplatonism, a philosophical system developed by Plotinus in the 3rd century CE. Plotinus expanded on Plato's ideas, introducing the concept of the One. The One is the ultimate source from which all existence flows. In his work, the Enneads, Plotinus writes, "The One is, in truth, beyond all statement. Whatever you say would limit it. The all-transcending, transcending even the most august mind, which alone of all things has true being, has no name." This idea of the One as being the eternal reality is just the Western Greek perspective. But as you will come to see, that there are many more traditions that encapsulate that same meaning. Parallel to these developments in the West, Eastern traditions have also been exploring profound metaphysical truths. In ancient China, Lao Tzu's Taoism presented the Tao as the fundamental principle that manifests through all of existence. The Tao Te Ching opens with, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of all things." In India, the Upanishads, the ancient Hindu scriptures, delve into the nature of Brahman, the ultimate reality, and Atman, the individual soul. One of the Mahavakyas, or great sayings from the Chandogya Upanishad, states, Tattvam asi, that you are. This phrase encapsulates the idea that the individual soul is fundamentally one with the ultimate reality, a concept that reverberates through the perennial philosophy. And I find this personally very interesting because it relates to Plato's idea of a material reality and a spiritual one, but also the metaphysical interpretation from the Bible where Jesus states, I and the Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. It can be seen that this phrase can relate to tattvam asi and the encapsulation of being an individual soul, but also being one with ultimate reality. But in the end, ultimate reality is greater than us. And a similar ideology is also present in the infamous biblical story where God reveals to Moses, I am that I am. Tattvam asi, that you are. These similarities are what fuels the quest for perennialists to find the ultimate meaning behind this ultimate eternal reality. Early Christian mystics also contemplated universal truths that transcend individual doctrines. Saint Augustine, an influential theologian and philosopher, wrote extensively about the nature of God and the human soul. He developed this further in his Confessions. Augustine expresses his search for divine truth, stating, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." This yearning for a connection with the divine echoes the perennial philosophy's emphasis on a shared divine essence. I will now be sharing 3 key concepts of traditional perennialism. The first concept, universal truths. At the heart of all major religions is that shared understanding of the divine and the purpose of human life. The golden rule, appearing in various forms across traditions, exemplifies this common wisdom. For example, in Christianity, it's stated as, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." In Confucianism, which originates from ancient China, it appears as, "Do not impose on others what you do not wish for yourself." 2 completely different areas of the world, and yet that wisdom is still shared. And that's what is extremely interesting to perennialists. The second key concept is sacred tradition. Sacred traditions are the vessels carrying perennial wisdom across generations. It's almost like a preservation of them through rituals, scriptures, and teachings. These traditions preserve the continuity of spiritual truths. Confucius emphasized the importance of learning from the past, stating, "Study the past if you would define the future." And the third key concept of traditional perennialism is metaphysical unity. This concept highlights the interconnectedness of all existence, suggesting that the material and spiritual worlds are manifestations of this one single underlying reality. And the Upanishads reflects this idea, saying, "The one who sees all beings in the self and the self in all beings, he never turns away from it." There have been many influential figures in traditional perennialism, and there are still some ongoing today, but I will only just limit to 3 for the purpose of this introduction, the 3 that I think and have found to be the most influential of all. The first one is Aldous Huxley. This English writer and philosopher was best known for his book, The Perennial Philosophy. In his work, Huxley compiled wisdom from various traditions to illustrate their common truths. He wrote, "The perennial philosophy is expressed most succinctly in the Sanskrit formula tattvam asi, that thou art, or that you are. The Atman, or the immanent eternal self, is one with Brahman, the absolute principle of all existence, and the last end of every human being is to discover that fact for himself, to find out who he really is. Huxley's interest in mysticism and the human potential for spiritual realization greatly influenced his work. He proposed the idea, as well as many others of course, that the goal is essentially to realize that you are one with the Father, or you are the Atman to the Brahman. You are one with the eternal nature of this reality. The second one that I will be introducing is specifically tailored to traditional perennialism, which is essentially like a little sub-branch of perennial philosophy. And this man is a French metaphysician and scholar of traditional metaphysics and symbolism, René Guénon. Guénon was heavily known to critique modernity and emphasized returning to traditional wisdom and metaphysical principles. He observed the modern world in its present state is like a body whose soul has departed. Guénon's works such as the reign of quantity and the signs of the times delve into the metaphysical roots of modern civilization's spiritual crises. He saw modernity as the opposite of spiritual tradition, the enemy, which we will definitely explore later on. And the third man to introduce is Frithjof Schuon, a Swiss philosopher and metaphysician. Schuon wrote extensively on the perennial philosophy. In fact, he highlighted the universal aspects of religious experiences. That was his main focus, religious experiences and the essence of spiritual teachings. Schuon emphasized the universality of religious truths and the importance of a direct personal experience of the divine. Whilst I have described the three key concepts of traditional perennialism, I would like to dive in a little bit deeper into the three core principles of traditional perennialism. Number one, principle of unity. All existence emanates from a single divine source. Different religions may name this source differently, such as God, Brahman, Tao, Jesus, Allah, but they ultimately refer to the same reality. The Quran states, "Say he is Allah, the one and only." This is not too far from Plato's idea of the one being the eternal reality. The second core principle is symbolism. Symbolism, myths, and allegories are essential tools for conveying deeper spiritual truths. They help us to understand complex metaphysical concepts. Joseph Campbell, in The Power of Myth, said that myths are public dreams and dreams are private myths. What language may not be able to explain, symbolism might just do that. And the third core principle is sacred art and ritual. Sacred art and rituals are not just merely cultural expressions. They are vital practices connecting individuals with the divine, and it maintains that spiritual health of communities and preserving perennial wisdom. As Rumi beautifully expressed, let the beauty of what you love be what you do. While traditional perennialism offers a profound perspective of unity between so many different cultures and religions towards that shared love and being for essentially God or the ultimate reality, there are also understandable criticisms. One of them is where some may argue that it oversimplifies the rich diversity of religious traditions. Focusing too much on similarities can ignore the unique aspects that differentiate these religions, and it's perhaps those differentiations that may give more of a foundation for not necessarily foundation, but a reasoning for why a certain group believes that this is the ultimate truth. And it's not something one should easily overlook and ignore. Others view perennialism as potentially elitist, suggesting that only a select few can truly grasp these universal truths, that you could not fit into a community and so you had to be above it and see from a bird's eye view all these communities, and that is something that some may feel threatened by. And additionally, the focus on metaphysical unity may downplay the historical and cultural context that shaped these religious experiences and doctrines. They are also not to be overlooked, and this is an understandable concern. However, it is essential to also recognize that perennialism invites us to seek common ground and mutual understanding to then foster that shared sense of humanity, to bring us all closer, to be seen as God's children, that we're all one and the same on a soul, metaphysical, spiritual level. Okay, so here are my unfiltered thoughts about traditional perennialism. The way I see it is that, well, I can give a mathematical analogy which might help, which is essentially that there are many different fractions, right? With different denominators that are, on a first peek, difficult to add up. It is only when you realize through a different perception that you can actually convert or see the similarities in them in order to factorize them. So then you can do so and get closer to the answer, the equation. Then once you factorize, a mathematician then simplifies, which leaves the final answer to the equation, the eternal flame that was burning all along and we just had to uncover it. And that is essentially how I see traditional perennialism. Everything seems so different from each other. Everyone has their own traditions and cultural practices, and they should be rightfully preserved according to the geographical location, the community, the shared essence of ancestors. But to realize, like I said before, that eternal flame, I think to realize that there is an answer to this big equation, or at least something as close to an answer, is extremely important to me. And it's funny to see how with religion, tradition, sacred knowledge, we often go so far back to find the wisdom that has always been there with our ancestors, but simultaneously we go forward the opposite way with progression of science, thinking it's against those spiritual teachings. And really, I just think that they have intertwined many times, which I hope to explore in this channel. Like the yin and yang fishes chasing each other. That is sort of how I see science and religion / spirituality. They're sort of playing with each other, seeking the truth in opposite directions, but then when seen from a bird's eye view, they are whole. They are one, and there's just so much to explore from that itself. I hope that this lecture gave you a new perspective on this Introduction to Traditional Perennialism. I have also put in links in the description of other videos that I found were brilliant and gave a much more comprehensive introduction than I have. So if you are interested, please do check them out, because they are clearly delivered by people that are much more knowledgeable in it than I am and much more experienced. But as I am learning, I am sharing. And for that, I would like to end the video with a little disclaimer that I am by no means claiming that I am knowledgeable in everything, except that I am in the humble pursuit of wisdom. Thank you for watching.